general education assessment. I'm here in Presley, and my home department is English and Theater. I'm an associate professor there. And starting this semester, I am also serving in a new position as QEP and General Education Assessment Coordinator. So I've been the assessment coordinator in my home department for the past 3 years. So this is a pretty natural transition for me to take this on. But I'm really excited to be doing these workshops and getting a sense of how assessment is happening in other departments across campus, and also to get a sense of what your needs are so that I can help you to the best of my abilities. Since we are sort of a small group, I'm probably going to be asking you some questions and just getting you to share what your primary interest in being here is, so that I make sure, hopefully, that I've addressed it in what I have already prepared, but if not, that hopefully I can answer the question that you came with, or I can find the answer for you and get that information to you as quickly as possible. So just to start though, just some key points here that I wanted to make, that we're in a reporting cycle this academic year for all general education courses. So last year was the collection year, 2016-2017, 2017-2018 is the reporting cycle. So the idea then of offering these workshops this semester is to make sure that everyone feels confident in scoring and writing the report and submitting it in a timely fashion. And I am the point person for all things general education assessment related on that front. So feel free to contact me at any point if you have questions. Something else kind of looking forward is that also the QEP is going to be assessed through the general education courses. I know some of you already are aware of that fact. If you happen to teach a course in one of the elements up here, 3A, 3B, or 5A, those courses are working on developing a QEP-related learning activity, so something related to critical reading during this year. And I'm also the person who can offer help on that front, as well as Lisa Bosley and Jill Harrod. So keep that in mind as well. And we're also planning on offering some workshops specifically focused on those learning activities in the spring semester. So that's something to keep in mind. Eventually, though, all of the courses in general education will need to develop a critical reading activity so that the QEP can be assessed through all the courses in Gen Ed. So that's something to keep in mind. So key points that I'm going to be talking about today, and also asking you all questions about how you currently do assessment in your home departments, is the primary goal of general education assessment, the process for assessing the courses, and then ways we can improve student learning through general education assessment results. So the primary goal is to improve student learning, right? I think it's easy, and I'm basing this mostly on my own experience as someone who routinely teaches general education courses. I routinely teach courses in the first year writing sequence in the English department, and then also as the assessment coordinator for my home department, that a lot of times I think we can see the assessment process as extra work, right? That it can be, that it's sort of an add-on, that it's something extra that we have to do. But the spirit of it is that we're doing this to help students succeed, right? So that's the primary goal, and I think it's been helpful for me to sort of keep my eye on the prize that that's the main takeaway, right? That is the main driver in doing assessment. I think some other things that can come out of that are connected to the primary goal of supporting student success is that the assessment should impact course instruction and activities, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the process. Also, I think it's a good opportunity to look at ways to help students identify support services. So So things like the Null Studio, right? Also support services for faculty. If faculty are having issues with their instruction techniques, that they could perhaps seek assistance through the Center for Teaching and Learning. So that those are all positive things that can come out of the assessment process. And then also, and this is something that that Jackie J will probably talk more about in her workshop, is how this connects to program level curriculum. That the general education courses, that we should be thinking of these and how they fit into the department, right? That it's not the standalone thing that is separate from the department, but that is part, should be a meaningful part of the program. So that's something that I hope that we can talk about as well. I've already mentioned this, but just bears repeating that we are in a reporting year, 2017-2018. I do want to pause here a second though and hear from you all. What questions did you come with today? What is it that you hope to take away from this workshop? Or what is your role in assessment in your department?
Well, I will. I inherited this from the previous chair, so I'm not sure that we have the best assessment instrument that we're using, and so I want to think about this a little bit more broadly and see if there would be a better way for us to be meeting. We're in the element 6 area, diversity, and so I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. In addition, this course, SAT 104, is taught almost entirely by adjuncts.
Okay.
And so I want to make sure that I'm giving them the information they need so they approach it in the right way.
Right. I mean, that absolutely adds an extra layer of something to consider, right? Anyone else?
Well, I don't teach a gen ed course, but my program, the recap program, goes into all of the orientation classes, the GST 101 and the college specific 100 courses. So I was just coming here to learn more about the assessment for these classes and ways that I might need to incorporate that into our assessment if we got, or ways that I can assist the professors' classes that I'm going into.
Anyone else? John, you keep looking at me, so
Sure.
Claudia.
Sure. Okay, so I teach mainly in the basic courses for Element 1C, the speech communication, oral communication. And for our assessment, we watch videotapes randomly selected out of the classes, assess them against the EKU oral communication rubric, and then decide based on our information where we need to target improvement for our adjuncts, and also working with the studio for their consultants.
So you also have a lot of part-time instructors
Yeah,
as well?
yeah. We do.
Yeah, and that's the situation too for my home department, specifically for first year writing, which is like that's our big huge assessment for general education. Anyone else? So I think from the faculty program there are a lot of moving parts, right? Is there anyone in here who is like the primary point person for assessment in your department or program? You are?
Yeah,
Okay.
Krista Kimmel and I are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw your name on one of the emails that I've been getting a lot of
Okay.
emails. So yeah, so we'll be talking.
Yes.
So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of coordinate the assessment for the econ courses in our department. And in terms of gen ed, we've obviously been doing assessments for as long as I've been here, which is 8 years. And so, we go through that 2-year cycle, and we have 4 courses in the general education program at EKU, so we assess them pretty much on the standard SPS rubric. And usually we haven't really had a lot of issues or problems with the assessment. But I think in recent years and more recently, there's I think been a more renewed focus on demonstrating evidence. We dealt with some of that, post accreditation. And my real motivation for being here is really to see if I can glean a little bit more information about what exactly, because it's not entirely always clear to us, I think, and speaking for myself at least, what exactly they're looking for. I understand the notion of demonstrating evidence, but how exactly you do that is not always clear. And and a lot of times they're expecting improvements, changes, and they're not always, explicit changes or improvements per se that are made in any given semester. And so, I think there is some, I don't want to say pressure, but this expectation that, that we need to demonstrate continually, and it's sort of a work in progress. We appreciate that, but any concrete, specific information we can get in terms of expectations will make, I think, everybody's job easier.
Great, yeah. And I think that is one of the primary responsibilities of my new position is making sure that you don't feel like that this time when you're working on the reports, that when you submit it you feel confident that 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 this isn't mysterious, right? So so that I can be a resource on that front. Anyone else?
I guess you follow up on the whole documentation thing, when we had to go back and sort of shore up stuff for SACs last time.
Yeah.
I'm now wondering how that's going to change the process moving forward.
Right, and that's really going to be more something that that Jackie J covers in her workshop tomorrow. Although I think we have been discussing adding that element to the general education assessment expectations as well, some sort of documentation. So so I think this year we haven't made any definite decisions. Is that right, Bethany? Am I right on that front? But we've been talking about it so that it aligns more closely, so that so it's not like we have these completely different assessment models on campus, so that there's some consistency. But there's not an expectation of that this year. This, I would imagine, would be more like a pilot year if we're going to ask for documentation for gen ed assessment. So,
Can I add something to that? I've been general education coordinator for a while, but not the assessment guys, right? So I'm a little bit outside, but I never felt like, Rose and Jennifer were ever putting pressure on you to see improvement. What they wanted to see more than anything else is that you were using those results to make your course better. That was always the thing. It's always about helping you make your course better, not about continuous. I heard Rose say a couple times, no, I don't even want to see year-to-year kind of improvement kind of issues. It's about identifying weaknesses in the course and what are you going to do to improve the course to address weaknesses or emphasize strengths. And so it's about seeing you. I can't speak to SACs. I don't know what SACs wants. I can't speak to that at all. But in terms of what we were always thinking here at EKU, it's about, we want to see you doing something in your course that addresses weaknesses and emphasizes strengths.
and my department is that, how can we be constantly improving, right? Is there not a point at which you can't get any better? So Garrett, thank you for sharing that. I think that helps sort of contextualize what is meant by how are you using the data to improve student learning, right? Okay, so it felt like a good time to hand these out because what I really want to focus on is talking about actually sort of best practices, and it seems like that might address some of your concerns, and hopefully for those of you who feel like you have a really effective, accessible assignment, that you can share some information about that, and we can kind of all just learn from each other. And I'm also just kind of curious to see how it works kind of in the trenches, because I get the sense that it can look very different from program to program. So that's one thing that I feel like I need to know in my new position to do the best job that I can. So what I've handed out here, this is like I almost didn't do this because I'm like, this is kind of so simple. But this is when I inherited the assessment responsibilities in the English department and got the first round of reports that I then needed to, well, at that point, hand off to Rose. Now we actually can enter those through Qualtrics ourselves. It was all over the place. There was no consistency. Some of the reports were just the numbers from the rubric in like 2 sentences. Some of the other reports were like 6 pages long and had, great details, lots of information, but it ended up that some of it, like, I did not need for the purposes of reporting. So something that I decided to do then was just kind of make this worksheet up for the folks in my department who were responsible, because we have a lot of courses in gen ed. So to kind of standardize what the reporting process would look like, and also to really emphasize what Garrett was getting at, the use of the data in connection to student learning. Because I found that without this, I was getting lots and lots of details, but not a lot of information about, okay, so we did the scoring, and here's what it looked like, here's what the sample was, et cetera, but then sometimes there wasn't even any information about how it was used, right? And that's the piece that's the most important, is yes, the scoring part is important, but then it's like, okay, so you have these numbers, what does that mean? And then also, what are you gonna do with that, right? So I found that even though this is just so super simple, that this was really kind of transformative in the way that the folks in my department have been able to report on the assessment process. And also, I think it's made it easier for them so that they're not, so that it's not mysterious, like what information they need to report, that this really just kind of homes in on, like, this is what I need to enter into Qualtrics, right? So I think that this is just something super easy. I'm happy to share the Word document with you all if any of you would like a copy of this. So you can just let me know about that. But I thought I would share it with you as just something to make your life a little bit easier, and also to help highlight the emphasis on what you're doing with the data, right? That it's not that you just have it, okay, here it is, but like, okay, now what are you going to do with it? How are you going to share it with the folks who teach it? If you have like a lot of part-time instructors, for example, how are you going to get that information to them? And how do you hope that will maybe improve student learning in those courses? So I think that this is helpful on that front. My first point here, though, on this slide is just talking about best practices. There's a lot of good information on the general education website about this, and I've got a link to that here as well, which we can go to in a second. But I want to hear a little bit about what does your accessible piece look like? What do you like about it? Is there anything that you would like to change? Those sorts of things, because I hope that that's something, if there is, you think a need for change, that's something that I can assist with at a time of your choosing. So if somebody's like, if you're really proud and excited about your accessible piece, what is it that you like about it? Or what is it that other instructors like about it?
You're talking about the assignment itself?
Yeah, the assignment itself.
For us, it's just the final speech in the class, so it's the chance to see whether they've done the things we asked them to do.
Yeah. Do they video themselves?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
We record all the speeches within the class and then we select for assessment.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And what does your scoring team look like? How is that composed? I find too that those can be good opportunities to have like a conversation and to kind of recalibrate, because sometimes I imagine, especially with the videos, if you've been watching a lot of them, like you might need to take that break, right, to kind of, yes, well, off campus, right? Yeah. So I think that's a good point. Something that we've experimented with in English is actually including the part-time instructors as part of that assessment process with scoring. That for us, it's essays. And we found that has been a really good experience because a lot of times they may be teaching more sections of the course than I am, for example. So that can be some really good insight, different perspective that they're bringing to it. And also I think it works as a really, it's a good type of professional development for them and a way to make them feel like they're really part of the community. And they, since those are the only classes that they're teaching, they are really the true stakeholders in that process. So that's something that we've experimented with. So if you have several, that might be something to consider for your scoring session. So and I'm calling it scoring, but that's what I mean is the assessing of the assignment that you've selected for that. I'm also kind of curious too, especially those of you who have lots of different people teaching the courses and maybe some part-time instructors teaching it. What do you do to ensure that that everyone is doing that assignment? What are some strategies that you have on that front?
Required for the course.
We have them.
It's an assignment that's required.
Right, okay. So, yeah.
We make them.
You make that I know, but sometimes, I guess it's just been, I don't know, I may be thinking for my home department, we've had sort of a sea change in the way first year writing is staffed, and we have a lot of tenured folks who haven't taught it in several years, and there's been some pushback with the required essay. so it's been kind of interesting. So I was just wondering what that looks like. Do you all have standard syllabi then? Here's the syllabus, this is the course that you're teaching? No? You're taking?
Obviously, there are portions that are standardized.
Right.
But, people use different textbooks. An array of different assignments.
Right.
We have a lot of people experiment in government a lot. We do a lot of pedagogy studies, that sort of thing. But we still have the
assignment.
The assessment that is required for gen ed. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Design a better one and get back to us.
So maybe you have more agreeable people. I don't know. so no, I think that's interesting.
No, I don't.
We are being videoed. So what does your scoring process look like then? We've heard what it looks like in communications. What do the rest of you do? And what do you think works or what maybe needs some tweaking?
Well, in the College of Education, of course, we are, by our accreditors, we are so, controlled. So the syllabus has to be the same, the book has to be the same, the assignments have to be the same. But the assignment that we use for the gen ed requirement is not the same that we use for our key assessment. And so what I'm thinking is, because we have to do inter-rater reliability and validity and all of that on our key assessments, I'm trying to think, is there a way that could also be, because we have a session, inter-rater reliability session for all my instructors. Well, some of them drive in Corbin or wherever, So I can't do it multiple times. They're just not going to do that. So we have one session, and I have never had time to do also inter-rater reliability on the gen ed. So we've done it through email and little video back and forth, but I have no way of knowing if they're grading the same. So I need to work on this.
That could be great though if you could align it, right?
I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think that would make everyone's life easier and it can maybe make the assignment more meaningful.
Right.
So yeah, so that sounds great. What about in terms of just practical in the trenches? Who's scoring the accessible piece? We've already heard from John. What does it look like in government? Just kind of curious.
Well, for some of our classes, we really only have one instructor that teaches a particular gen ed class. So they sort of are their own agent, if you will. American government's really the only one where we have so many other governments. And of course, the econ 230, 231 that comes faculty. I know in American government, we have a course coordinator who pulls everybody together and gathers the data, makes sure everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Then that individual is in charge of writing the report. We do the assessment, we build the rubrics and such as a group.
Yeah, in economics, the economics assessment, we do something really similar. We have 4 general courses, and so in each of these courses, the assessment really entails sort of a mini exam, which is given with the final exam at the end of the semester. And there are a series of questions that test the major assessment areas in the SBS rubric. And so, one faculty member will coordinate that particular course. So there will be 4 sort of coordinators for the 4 general courses that we use. And then after that, the scoring is pretty easy because, as I said, there are several questions in each category. And so we kind of, tabulate the performance in each category and analyze the data and kind of go from there. So, and that's something that we've done, since times immemorial.
So, if it ain't broke. Okay, thank you all for sharing that. This is really helping me sort of, wrap my mind around what this looks like across campus and in different departments. And hopefully it's maybe just helpful to hear how other folks are handling the process. So I did just want to share, I'm not sure if this is a website you visit very often, but I just linked here to the general education website. And there are actually like a lot of resources here that you might find helpful. I need to get my name on some of them. I think Jennifer's still listed on many of these as the point person. But one that I think is really helpful, and or at least it was helpful for folks in my department who are responsible for the reports. It's just these guidelines. And these have been updated earlier this year, so these are up to date, and it even has a sample report here as well. So I think especially if you have maybe somebody new to the process involved in your assessment this round, this could be a helpful resource to point them to. So that's something to keep in mind. And I'll also come back to this in just a little bit to point out where the links to Qualtrics live, because I know we've already got, some people have been really on the ball and have already submitted their reports, and I think just out of habit they sent them to Rose. Let's see. So I did mention, and you brought up the documentation, right, the evidence, and that is something that is happening at the program level, right? And we had to, we were all sort of playing catch up this past spring semester, trying to get that documentation in place, and I think it was probably a little stressful, right? I know it was for me. I was really freaked out about that, like making sure that I was able to get the appropriate documentation to improve the report that I had submitted for the different programs in my department. So we have been talking, Bethany's been part of this conversation about, just as a way to be consistent, to also ask for documentation for the general education reports as well. So we haven't made an official decision, I don't think, is that, I'm going to defer to you because.
Yeah, no, not yet. We're trying to figure out what's going to be the best way.
The best way to do it, yeah. I think it's probably safe to say, though, that I maybe don't worry about that too much right now. So, and if it does become an issue, I will be sending you lots of information about it, and we'll be happy to support the documenting of the report. So, but I wanted to put it on here just so it was on everybody's radar as a possibility, and just to be thinking about, what would work as effective evidence for your reports. And I imagine, it could be things like, maybe if the assignment has been updated recently, something like that, just including a copy of the assignment sheet with the changes highlighted. that sort of thing. Or maybe you've changed the way that you actually score the essays. Maybe you've invited a new faculty member or a part-time instructor to be part of the process. That could be some sort of documentation, like an email or something that could work in this area. So all of that to say, just want it on your radar and not to really worry about that too much at this point, because nothing's official yet. But my sense of it is like this will become an expectation at some point in the not too distant future. So just to align with the program level assessment, and also I think just as a best practice, right? That if you're writing about some changes, we should be able to provide evidence for that, right? So, and I don't think that will require a whole lot of heavy lifting to make that happen. So, again, I'm happy to help if you're sort of scratching your head like I'm not sure what we can include here. I'm happy to meet and talk about that. Okay. I should get back to that, right? Okay. So, as Garrett pointed out, this is the most important part of the process, right? Is using this data to improve student learning. So you've done all this, right? It's like, okay, now what? You've done, you've watched all of these videos or you've read all these essays, whatever that assessed assignment might be, and you've scored them. You've got some comments here, but what is it that you now do with that information? And I'm asking, what do you all do? Like you've done the scoring, which when you have a lot of sections, it takes hours and hours to do that, right? Like it's a lot of work. So on my end, it's essays, like reading lots and lots of 8 to 12 page research papers. So that's a lot of work. So what do you do after that? You celebrate probably, right? But what else do you do? How do you get that information to the appropriate faculty members? And what do you do as a follow-up to see if what they're doing with that information?
I can tell you what we've done with ours so far.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
And I can pull the numbers for you if you want to see them at some point, but we took the information, looked against our department goals for our percentage of what we want. We wanted 70% to score certain, like a 3 or 4. And we looked across our numbers, and some categories were just dismal. So we knew that we needed to target our trainings based on those numbers.
So for the most part, we try to provide them a course in a box. This will be successful. We use this. That's also useful in case you have to have a full-time faculty member pick a section up real quickly, which I actually did this semester. But it also, I think, provides the quality control amongst adjuncts, and then the full-time faculty will obviously have a lot more time to put into it.
Right, exactly, yeah. And so, but the spirit of it is, though, it's like it doesn't matter what section a student is taking, that they're going to have a similar experience.
Yeah,
right?
and if we find they're struggling with something like in speeches, all students struggle with the same sort of thing. We have that same problem.
Yeah.
We try to design some sort of assignment to address it, and then disseminate that assignment everywhere with full-time faculty being given academic freedom to play with it, improve it, get back to us with adjuncts like, here's what it is, you'll be doing this Thursday, September 25th,
Right.
with no real
Right.
option.
Well, ours is very prescribed.
Right.
It's video observation of special education settings and teachers in action. And so they actually do it twice. They have a first one and they get feedback on it and a score. And then what we collect data on is the second one. So they're observing something different but similar. And so we try to, what we tell instructors is you're targeting your feedback because you know what we're looking for on the second one, so that students have some support and are more likely to succeed.
Yeah.
So that's what we have.
No, that sounds
But it is
good.
very prescribed.
Yeah. It sounds great, though, that they're getting, and I assume it's pretty similar to with the videos that your
Yeah.
students are doing, that they're getting, that it's a process, right? That they do it the first time, they get some feedback, and then they do it before it becomes the high stakes thing, right? So, okay, great. So so these were just, I wanted to hear from you all first before I put my suggestions up here because you all know what works best in your own department. So Lynette, I also did the Assurance of Learning Day. So, because it's a great time, right? You have the captive audience. So, and I think that we all want to make that day as productive as possible. So, so I think that is a great venue for sharing that information. And especially, I think for, depending on the size of your department, that, like my department, it's a pretty big department. And so I feel like it's easy for some people to be kind of detached from what might be happening in our gen ed classes, which we see most of the students through the gen ed classes, right? So I think it's good even for the people who don't teach those classes to hear like how students are doing in them and what are the areas of concern and also like where are they doing well and how are we using the information from the assessment to make it even better. So I think that's really good. This is something that was kind of new to me, but the idea of some departments have assessment committees. I don't know if that is part of the culture in your departments or not, but I think that's kind of interesting, the idea of having a dedicated work group that focuses on assessment, especially if you have lots of different faculty members teaching the course. And it sounds like that's kind of the model for your situation. And something that we're experimenting with in English is including some part-time instructors in that as well. And we recognize that a lot of those folks are teaching at different institutions, like they're really busy. But we found that there actually have been a couple who have been really interested in participating as a kind of professional development, also just kind of a CV builder for them as well. So that's been, I'm hopeful that will be a good experience. And then my last suggestion here is, and it sounds like you are already very open to this, is it's just being flexible and maybe thinking about revising, what is the assessable assignment? If, and maybe you're very happy with yours, but you said you've been doing the same thing for several years, that, if you feel like students are consistently scoring poorly in one area, that it might be time to think like, well, maybe the problem's with the assignment, right? And maybe there's some ways that can be improved. So, and I think Assurance of Learning Day, if you're like my department and you're working on the agenda right now, it might be a good time to get that on there, some time to actually work on those assignments. So those are just some things to think about there. As I said before, though, I want to make myself available to faculty who are teaching these courses and who are responsible for reporting this information. So if at any time if you want to, feel free to email me. I'm happy to set up meetings, that sort of thing. So just consider me a resource as well if you have any questions on any of these fronts. In terms of just looking forward, that the QEP is going to be assessed through the general education courses. And so folks in certain elements are currently, as part of the pilot, are working on a critical reading activity that they will include in their gen ed courses. So those are in elements 3A, 3B, and 5 who are working on that this academic year. So, and the final versions of those will be due, a draft of those will be due at the end of this semester. The final version will be due in the spring semester. And then just to get it on your radar, we're asking that the general education reports be submitted for Qualtrics by April 1st of 2018. So that's a little bit earlier than usual. It's usually May 1st. But our rationale was that would give us some time to go ahead and look at those in the spring semester, and if there are any issues that we could address those before summer, right? Because if with the May 1st deadline, then everybody's gone. so then it drags it into maybe the fall semester, and nobody wants that. So the idea here is that this is actually for the good of everyone. so if there are issues, we can get those resolved before so, and also I think May 1st is terrible, right? Because everybody's really busy, I think, grading final projects, and so hopefully this will just make everyone's life a little bit easier. And then finally, just pointing out that back on the general education website, that you can now just click on the report links, and then you'll get this list for the different areas. So you can just click here, and I'll just click on one. So if this is maybe new to anyone, and thinking about it. And so that the handout that I gave you, like, it is just drawn from, it is just this in Word document format. So I left off the course information because I figured, that's easy enough to fill in. But in terms of the information that you would be filling in here, I just copied it from this website. So to make that a little more transparent for maybe the folks who are involved who don't see this end of it, right? So, and that's going to look different depending on your department. Maybe the same person is doing the whole thing, right? But if you have a bigger assessment, somebody who's part of the scoring team and actually writing a report may not see this part of it. So, that's why I came up with this. But I think that this is fairly straightforward, and it's kind of streamlined the process. If you've been doing this for a while, I think this makes it a little bit more efficient. So you have access to that through the Gen Ed website. That concludes. That's the last thing I have here on my Prezi. So we have about 10 minutes left, though. I'm just curious to see, did any new questions occur to you as we were going through this, or concerns or suggestions? Anything that you would like to ask or share at this point?
So to confirm, instead of a physical report, we go on the link and we enter
Yes.
bit by bit, just so we just don't report a document. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that makes it a lot easier. This way you can just copy and paste from like a Word document, right? So I think that makes everyone's life. Because I think actually what was happening, at least when I first started doing this, was that Rose would get them, and then she would actually go through and put all this information in, which was very nice of her. but I'm sure that was really tedious and a lot of work. So this kind of streamlines the process and eliminates all that extra work for somebody else. Right?
It's brand new for this cycle, this online reporting, or?
Yes, I believe so. I think it is. Because I think the last time, I'm pretty sure I sent ours to Rose last time. So if it did exist, I hope she doesn't think badly of me then. But it definitely, that's the expectation now. So, which is kind of nice too, because then it just saves emailing someone, and just, you can do it in your jammies at home if you want to. So that's always a bonus. Any other questions or suggestions? I'm always eager. If something occurs to you, like if you have a light bulb moment, you're like, it'd be great if we did, let me know. So, because I really, I don't want anyone to feel like this is mysterious, or that you're on your own, or that this is just going out into, some sort of void, but that we're gonna look at these, and hopefully we can help students learn more, right, through the data that we collect through the process. So I think another thing too is just that openness to changing the assignment. If you're not happy with the assignment, or you think there's a better way to do it, do it, change it. I think that, at least for me, when I first started doing this work in my department, I feel like there was real resistance to change, and which is normal, right? I think most of us like to be comfortable, and the familiar is comfortable. But if it's not working, then why do it, right? And I think some really good conversations can come out of really reconsidering the assignment and its role in your program. So some things to think about. I'm always happy to help on those fronts too, if you'd like just, you know, another opinion, or if you have questions you want to ask. So keep me in the loop. And I look forward to working with all of you in this capacity. So,